Welcome to the Chess Angle. This is not your typical chess podcast. If you're an amateur or club-level player, the Chess Angle is for you. Our content is aimed at busy adults who are serious about the game but have limited study time. Featured guests include both amateur and titled players alike. And now, here's your host, Director of the Long Island Chess Club, Neil Bellon.
Welcome to Season 3 of The Chess Angle. Thanks everyone for listening. We've built a really nice following over the last 2 seasons, and I truly appreciate all of the support. I also want to thank our sponsor, Chessable.com. Their courses are awesome. Make sure you check them out. There's a link in the show notes, as always. Normally, for a premiere episode, I would talk about what's been happening with me and my ideas for the podcast, that type of stuff. But being that I have a guest this week, I'm going to hold off on those remarks until my first solo episode, and instead I'm going to jump right in. For this interview episode, I spoke with international master Justus Williams. Currently, he is the director of Black Squares Chess, which aims to bring the game to young players in underserved communities. At age 12, Justus became the youngest African American to earn the title of National Master, and then he went on to become an IM in 2021. As I'm sure many of you know, Justus was part of the famous chess team at Intermediate School 318 in Brooklyn, New York, that was featured in the 2012 documentary film Brooklyn Castle. We spoke about his experience at 318, his quest to earn the GM title, chess improvement, and much more. My conversation with Justus begins right now. Hey, Justus, how you doing? Good to see you. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today to share your story.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. No, it's my pleasure. So just to kind of break the ice, maybe you could tell us about, what's been happening now as far as your play, like what kind of tournaments you're playing in, that type of thing.
So right now when it comes to chess, I'm really in the discovery mode at the moment. So while I understand that I'm a really strong chess player, not to jump topics, but to get to Grandmaster, it's going to take a lot more work than it did to get to National Master and FIDE Master and International Master. So knowing the commitment it will take, I have to be very selective in the tournaments that I do choose to play in. I guess in the beginning of this year or in the beginning of spring, I felt as though maybe I can just try to jump into everything. And so I started playing in, I won the Mid-American, which was in St. Louis. I tied for first, excuse me. And then right after that, I went to Foxwoods, Massachusetts, or in Connecticut. And then performed pretty well there. Played some really good chess. Played one of the, if I have a book of my brilliancy games, is definitely gonna, I have 2 games that'll go down there. One was a win and one was a loss. But then after that tournament, I realized that this is probably not efficient. And so I decided to just start playing in closed events. And then after that, I played in North Carolina in the Charlotte tournaments in the GMA. And I believe that was my first time playing in GMA. And while I only got 3 out of 9, every game was at least +3 in my favor. And so that was a good takeaway that I was able to gain from that tournament. But since then, I've been slowing it down and just playing in closed events. I also got to go to New York and play in their closed event as well, GMA. And then right after that, I played in St. Louis in IMA, I believe, and was able to bounce back and gain most of my points back there. And right now, I'm getting ready for the GM tournament, and that's going to be held in St. Louis as well. So I hope to be able to perform better than my last GMA tournament. So, but I've gotten some experience under my belt, and I've already came in last place. So there's only one way to go from there. So that's really what's been going on with my my like tournament play. It's just, I was playing all over the place, and then I started to slow down and just play selective tournaments. And I think it's going to be selective for a while until I'm really just 90%, chess player.
Right. Okay, cool. So I was going to ask you about the whole GM thing later, but obviously you definitely have your sights on that. Now, I don't want you to give anything away, any top secrets, but you're, outside of playing, your training and your studying, can you give us a little hint of like what that looks like, the type of things that you do?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll say this, like, as a kid, you see adults reading and like just preparing themselves. And as a kid, you just show up and you already feel like you're prepared and you think you got everything handled. So in a sense, I kind of treated chess as a hobby just because like a lot of my peers didn't play chess, or just the friends that I grew up with didn't really play chess. Not to say they didn't like it. It's just, I can't talk chess moves or chess games with them just because they're not exposed to it. And so I didn't really do too much training. So I, had a coach here and there. But other than that, it wasn't really too much training. Sometimes I'll read a book and, just stick with that one book and go crazy with it. But other than that, it wasn't too much. And so doing a lot of reflecting while studying at Webster, I realized like I probably could put in a little bit more effort, even though, I have never really seen it firsthand. There was just a huge chess library to where it's just like, today I could pick up a new book and start wherever. And that was my real introduction into, self improvement when it comes to chess, So I started just reading a lot of books. And then when there was norm tournaments coming, I would just start studying or preparing for my, opponents until like 3 a.m. And like, this is like right after, classes and things like that. I would just go to the chess club and, do a lot of studying there. And so just taking it more seriously, more than anything really tangible. Like it's not to, reinvent the wheel here, but, reading chess books, reading the classical books like matches and things like that. Obviously studying for your opponents and reviewing your games, even when you didn't just play it, like you played it a month ago. It's still always good to review it just so you don't fall into the same bad habits, even when you win the game. But more importantly is definitely the activity. Like I think activity trumps all, right? If you're active and you're able to maintain that, sustain that, I think it'll help, just compound your chess growth at that point.
Very, very nice. Now, are you still like even today, as far as like books and stuff, is that still in play, or did you alter things now that you're a little bit older?
No, it's probably more in play now than ever, just because I have more time. I know how to read efficiently. I know what to look for. I know what will interest me, what won't interest me, and like obviously end games don't interest anybody, but dedicating that time to doing things that you don't want to do, like especially don't want to do, right? If you don't want to, study chess, I guess openings would probably be the easiest part for you. And end games would be the most difficult. So just, buckling down and just taking a bite is really all it is. But right now, my chess library is just growing. It's growing immensely. So.
Right. So you agree, like people have to have the discipline and the self-awareness to know, okay, I might not like this part of the game, but that's the weakest part of the game. That's what I need to spend time on. Right.
Yeah, for sure. And
instead, they might spend time on something they like, but they already know well, and it doesn't really help them improve. Right.
Yeah. And that's why I like playing kids in general. Like I just understand how to play against younger players, I would say, just because they're more tactical and they're more just present in the moment, but they don't have a lot of chess history with them for the most part. And if you have a little bit, you can use that to your advantage when it comes to different openings or different end games or just knowing the style of player that you're playing against.
Okay, so let me change gears a little bit. Of course, I want to speak about Brooklyn Castle and your experience at IS 318. Now, let me set this up. Most of the listeners out there are familiar with the movie Brooklyn Castle. For those of you who aren't, I highly recommend you check out the documentary. Again, it's called Brooklyn Castle. It came out in 2012. It's actually on YouTube, the entire movie, not just clips. So I'll put a link for that. You can see it, but there's also a DVD available on Amazon. It was available to stream on Amazon, but I checked recently and for some reason it's not available. But like I said, right now it's on YouTube for free, which is great. And of course, Justus is featured heavily in that film. For those of you who don't know, I'll just give a quick recap. It's about intermediate school IS 318 in Brooklyn, which has, the most winning junior high school chess team in the country. They overcame budget cuts, but there was still tremendous support from the school and the community. And it's just a fascinating story. As I said, Justus is featured prominently in the film. If you haven't seen it, you really need to check it out because you don't know what you're missing. So Justus, I'm going to kind of just let you run with this as you will. If you could kind of take us through that whole experience at IS 318, working with Elizabeth Vickery, all of the, experiences you had, how it changed you, how it sort of started your trajectory in chess.
Yeah, for sure. And so, like I said, chess was, mainly a hobby for me as a child. So I wasn't really too, people viewed me as shy, but it was just, just like a disconnect, that I couldn't express. When it was time for me to go to middle school, I wanted to go to 318 just because I played in a couple of tournaments with a couple of 318 kids. And even though I outperformed them and I'm still the highest rated going into the school, I felt as though this is probably the best opportunity if I wanted to, get better with chess and still go to school. And so there was obviously some difficulties trying to work out the logistics of me traveling from the Bronx to Brooklyn every day to go to school. But once that was fixed, we were able to make it work. And then that's when they told me about the documentary and stuff. And so I think it was the first day of school. The movie was actually going to be mainly about me because the first day of school, they came to my house. And then, like I said, it's like an hour commute one way. And so they had the camera on me from as soon as I woke up for the most part until all the way, even the train ride to 318. So having that, the cameras on me, which almost seems like for no reason, what am I doing that's so great besides just playing chess, was definitely something that I had to get over. All the eyes looking at you besides just the lens. Feeling like you're expected to say something profound. It was definitely a lot of pressure that at the time I didn't like, but I'm glad that it was still with me. And I'm glad that they separated the parts of the movie to get other people some shine and, take some of the light off of me, which allowed me to just focus on chess. I mean, with the cameras in my face, I'm not just focused on chess and I can't just be 100% focused. But nonetheless, if I ever want to be that great player, right, that was some great experience right there. Even in the Norm tournament that I played in New York, Costa Corley was getting filmed. But then they had the camera on me and I just thought that was super funny. It was just full circle moment. Now I'm playing somebody else and they're the main topic and stuff. But it does bring a different challenge to the game when there are definitely viewers and this is going to be recorded and it's going to be held forever. But just the process, the whole documentary itself was just pretty cool, especially once we got familiar with, the crew and just the setup, and we were just traveling to different tournaments Saratoga, States, Nationals and Dallas. And it was fun and it was very comical. You got to see a lot of, different personalities, people rapping and then, people talking about politics, and we were all in the same school. So it was pretty cool. It was a very great experience, and yeah, maybe something like that to happen in the future again.
Yeah. Now about the chess, the chess team itself, maybe just give us some detail about that. You guys, it was an after school thing, and maybe talk about how that helped you and some of the things that Elizabeth Vickery would do with you. I mean, they showed some of it in the film, obviously, but Can you maybe give a little bit of can you unpack a little bit the types of things you would do like chess wise to improve as far as the program itself?
So I feel like I don't want to say it, but I'm like a special case for the most part. So chess at 318 was unlike any other program. So there was chess curriculum. So we would all, for the most part, have a chess class during the day, at some point during the week, if not every day during the week. Which in that she would split the class up in half. Just the regular middle schoolers that aren't on the chess team versus the chess team kids. So the chess team kids would be doing more puzzle work, more opening work, more specialized work in the back, while she was doing a lot of teaching to the recreational players. But for me, it was pretty different because she didn't really give me too much material because I came in as the highest rated player, and she would tell my mom, like, it really isn't too much that I could teach him just because, he's able to beat me and things like that. And so that was a challenge because then at times I would just be idle. And we would also sometimes play rated games and things of that nature. Yeah, we would do things like that. So it was a mix of, specialized work based on our weaknesses, while also, introductory class for, other middle schoolers at 318. And then we would just specialty work for the most part. And then when it comes to after school, we would do a lot of like serious playing. So at least like one 25-minute game. So one, I guess, rapid game for the most part. And it would be rated. And after that, we would have our fun, right? We would do a lot of progressive chess, buckhouse, and that's where we sharpen our buckhouse skills. And there were buckhouse tournaments at nationals and things like that. And then that's when 318 just kept sweeping those. But it was definitely a huge chess environment. Like it's unmatched for sure. Like there's a lot of tiers when it comes to 318 in chess.
And what's great too, like what I appreciated, now you may not know this, I actually teach middle school as my vocation. So, watching the movie for me, it was just as someone who works with, like your age at that time, like 2009, yeah. I worked with those kids every day. So it was, I really felt something watching it, just, working with that age myself. But as they say in the film, it was great that chess was like the cool crowd, right? Where usually, typical like American schools, and especially like where I am on Long Island, everything is like sports and football. So the fact that the chess team ruled the school, I mean, it was just, just what a great thing, what a great thing. You're on the chess team at 318. It's an honor. And, that was like the cool thing to do. So I just thought that was fascinating to see. And what you also mentioned about how they have chess classes during the day, that's something that should probably be standard, in the curriculum, because I just think it's so important, even if the students aren't going to go on to have a career in it or make it a major part of their lives. It's just still a great game, and just the thinking process, just the way that it sort of enriches you in general and what you get, take away from it. It's a shame that it's not part of the core curriculum in general in most places,
Yeah, I find chess to be like a really good self-reflective tool.
Sure.
Like you don't need a lot of input to improve or to learn something or take away something from the game. And so I like to teach, but also like to do a lot of hands-off teaching, right? Just, give them or an idea and just let them play with it. And even if it's, a mistake, just let them keep going for the most part. But that's something I got from one of my football coaches, right? If you're going to mess up hard. You're going to run a wrong
that's
route.
It.
Running perfectly.
Now, when you guys with 318, again, as you notice, I'm kind of like, there were a lot of things in the film where I'm like, oh, I want to know more about that. Like, but when you guys actually went to tournaments, whatever it was, nationals, did you have like a process as a team or an individual, or did your, the coach, did they actually do any, or was it kind of just, all right, we've worked hard, just have fun, go play? I'm just curious if there was kind of a structure while you guys were actually at the events.
No, there's definitely as much structure as you can give for, a group of 30 kids. So there definitely was some structure, right? So if we know there's some big games that, have some team implications in it, or team standing implications, whether it's a 1700 versus a 2100 or 1600 versus a 2100. We're going to do a little bit of prep beforehand just because, we have the information. But that's pretty much it. It's just a lot of collaboration, whether it comes from, Ms. Vickery herself or somebody else who's played a teammate of this player or, things like that. Wherever we can, we try to pull as much as we can, which is why it's helpful that we have such a large team, right? A group of 30 kids, say 10, 15 kids in each section or that nature. You can start pulling from a lot of different places. And it just gives us a higher chance of, being successful at that point.
And would you look at each other's games between rounds, that type of thing, like that sort of camaraderie?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's helpful when you just see a familiar face right behind your opponent, right? Like whatever pressure you just had, like it kind of, subsides for a second, if anything, or at least for me, it does. But yeah, we would, look over each other's games and, ask a lot of questions like, why'd you play there? Or, just regular chess fanatic things, kind of, just whatever moment popped out at you at somebody else's game. After the game, you'll find some moment to.
And sometimes, when it's your own game, you're so sort of biased, like you're attached, so if someone else looks at it with fresh eyes, oh, wait, you know what? I didn't even realize I was right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then that helps.
And I mean, yeah, they're definitely it can go well and you would always want it to go well, but there's some instances where, it just doesn't work. But I mean, seeing it firsthand allows us, to take, get some real good takeaways from it. Like I remember one game where one of my teammates they were preparing for, I don't know for who, but for somebody strong. And so they prepared a line where it's it's a pretty easy line to remember or not remember to justify and get into. But nonetheless, it's about 20 moves long. And so let's say it's about 21 moves long. They get to move 21 and that's where they stop. And on the move that they stop is where the opponent wins in exchange. Right. So it's almost like it was a mistake to stop at that point without knowing how to, fully carry on. But I mean, seeing that, once I saw that, that was just wow, I've never even thought that could happen. You could prepare and just prepare a loss kind of thing. And so I had to be wary of that. It was just, a lot of different experiences for sure.
Now, is there one, I'm put you on the spot here a little bit. In all your 318 tournaments where you traveled, was there one crazy story or crazy incident? Oh, I'll always remember this. Anything crazy like that happen?
I wouldn't say super duper crazy tournament, but I remember there was one tournament where it was probably, was it a middle school nationals? I believe it was a middle school nationals and sixth grade middle school nationals in Dallas. And I was, I believe, the second seed. And so what ended up happening? So yeah, I was the second seed for about 3 rounds. And then, chess players are very superstitious. And so I had left my notation book upstairs. And the round had started. And, when it's nationals, it's impossible to get an elevator, within the first 10 minutes of the round. And so I just said to heck with that. And I ended up just running up the stairs and it was 6 to 8 flights of steps. And so I'm rushing to get back down and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sweating and still got to play this game, but I got to act like I'm not hot and whatever. And then there's, a camera on me. And so I remember there's a scene where my face is just something like this, where I'm playing a game. And that was literally from that moment. And then after that game, they filmed me talking to John Galvin, and that's when he was talking about the diamonds and the pressure and all of that. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, I remember that scene.
So it was that scene. And altogether, that tournament was just it's like when you're late for a flight. That's what it felt like. It was just nothing was clicking at this point. But by the time the tournament had ended, right, we were all ready to, blow off steam. Because if I didn't win, somebody else won, right? So, you just bring so many players and stuff. So, but we were all just, hanging out, WWF in the hotel room. Somebody ran into a painting, glass broke, room full of chess players. Nobody wants to get in trouble. Take all the glass off, put it under the mattress, and we're leaving tomorrow.
Right.
and
Okay. A bunch of
you
middle
never.
school kids in a room.
Yeah,
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 that's
middle
bound to
school
happen.
stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was that's definitely one that I remember. Was just that whole experience and just how topsy turvy, how roller coaster it was.
That's great. No, that's cool. So let's go back to New York. Now, by the way, just to kind of break it up a little bit, how is you're in St. Louis right now?
Yes, I'm in St. Louis at
How's
the
the
moment.
pizza? Have you gotten a good slice of pizza once you left New York?
I would say probably the best slice of pizza is the one that opens that stays open the latest. So there's one restaurant called Pie Guy. They close at like 3 a.m. So they're pretty solid. They got like New York slices.
All right. No, a lot of people tell me as soon as they leave New York, they can't get a good slice anymore. So, all right, that's good.
You don't get a New York slice. Maybe
Right.
you don't get a big slice. You'll get like a deep dish or a thin crust kind of thing. But yeah, you won't get a huge big New York slice.
Okay, so let's turn to, speaking of New York, Washington Square Park, because I know, correct me if I'm wrong, you did a lot of playing there as you were cutting your teeth and kind of making your way up. So I was hoping you could kind of unpack that whole experience, what you learned about, playing at the park and what that was like.
Yeah, I mean, those guys at the park, they're vicious if you're not prepared. And so whether it was just the actual play or the what we were saying or what they were saying, and I wasn't understanding, but my mom was kind of getting and stuff like that. So it was definitely an experience. I guess the two people that I remember the most are like JP and Coach Shep. Like those are the two very insightful people that I pick up a lot of chess or chess material or chess ideas from them, even to this day when I walk by and play a couple of games with them or just chat with them and things like that. So there's basically a lot of knowledge in that part for the most part. And that's why I always come back. Like every time I go to New York, I go to a park. Union Square, Washington Square, St. Nicholas, maybe not too much Bryant Park, but nonetheless, like I try to make sure I hit chess spots where I know a lot of chess players would be at. There's a lot of knowledge. Whatever you think you have, they'll come back with more. I'll tell them where I think I'm weakest at. They'll tell me what player I should probably study if I didn't already know, kind of thing. So as a kid, they taught me how to be, I guess, fearless over the board for the most part. Just I'll sack whatever if it makes sense. If somebody sits across from you, you have a chance of actually beating them, right? And once you think like that, then you get closer to actually, securing that goal. But yeah, I used to be, sitting across from players and just like, all right, how am I going to mess up here? Like, I know this is a solid position that I know I can't hold, right? And at some point, I'm going to just mess it up. But yeah, playing more in the parks, you just become more fearless in it. That kind of leaves your mind for the most part.
Right. And that was mostly, the park was mostly what I'm assuming like 5-minute games. Like what kind of time controls were you doing?
Yeah, it would be 5-minute games. And we would go early in the morning. So we probably leave around noonish. So maybe from like 9 to noon or 10 to noon.
I want to ask you a little bit about your progress regarding your titles. You spoke a little bit about this, but of course, at age 12, you were the youngest African-American to achieve National Master. Then you became an IM recently, right, in 2021. You talked about GM. So can you talk a little bit about your trajectory, sort of the line from, when you first started to Master, any interesting sort of, information or advice or any sort of inflection points that really helped you? I'm just curious to hear about that path.
The main takeaway I can get from it is just that it is what it is, right? Like it happens the way it's supposed to happen. I started playing in the 3rd grade, and then by 5th grade or the end of 5th grade, I became an expert. And then going into middle school, in 7th grade, I was able to achieve the rank of master, national master. Then I played in a couple international tournaments and achieved the FIDE master title. And then I got the rating to match it while in middle school as well. And while those, I was pretty much just playing. Like I didn't really recognize the title or care about the titles because I've seen a lot of 1700 CMs that were really good. And, I've seen a lot of 2100 FMs that are not really good. And I'm just talking about just youth players for the most part, youth competitions. And I didn't really respect the title too much unless you were an adult. So I wasn't really registering that I was racking up these titles, and that, allows me to play in other tournaments and other arenas and things like that. I would say when I started, or when I was leaving high school, I had played in Norway. It was a invitational tournament, or a closed tournament. A closed tournament, and then I was able to tie for first place there with a couple of GMs and IMs present. Magnus Carlsen came, Ariantari came, and they were all watching the games and things like that. And that's where, for some reason, even though I was able to tie for first with, I think, 6 out of 9 or 6.5 out of 9 or 6.5 out of 11, I believe, there was no norm possibilities or norm chances there, just because of I played too many low-rated players. I think I played about 3 1800s or 3 1900s or around there, and that was enough to ruin my norm chances. Prior to that, I already had 2 norms from playing in international competition. So I was hoping that would be my third one, and then going into college, I'll be IM. My freshman year of college at Webster, I played in the norm tournament in St. Louis, and I was able to win that with 6.5 out of 9. And I got my last IM norm there, but now I just needed the rating to match. That's all I would need. But then it became super difficult to get to 2,400 FIDE. My highest at one point was 2398. And then I played one tournament. I got 3.5 out of 7, dropped out the 7th round, and still lost 50 points. And then after that, it was just 4 years later, they took me to get my IM title. But that's mainly, I attribute that a lot to the inactivity, because coming from New York, or the East Coast in general, there's just a lot of tournaments that, strong tournaments where you could take part in and stay active. But in the Midwest, it's kind of difficult. And I was just, reflecting again, I realized, like, I probably on average play about 3 or 4 tournaments a year if I'm lucky while I'm here. So in total, I probably played about less than 10 while my college years. So that can't help, especially when you're playing tougher competition, higher resistance and things of that nature. So activity was super important, and I understood that, and I just realized, like, if I keep jumping into a tournament every 2 months, I'm gonna end up being 2,200 real soon. So just hold off on that, finish studying, and then go back into playing. And then as soon as the pandemic ended, or quote unquote ended, I was pretty active. And my first tournament back, I played in Chicago Open, did really well, and then I just capitalized off of that momentum and got my IM title within about 3 or 4 tournaments later, just based off rating.
So a lot of it is just persistence. You really weren't necessarily obsessed with the numbers. It was more like, let me just work hard and play, and it'll happen, right?
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to keep playing strong players, and whatever I needed to do that, right? If I need to keep winning, or I need to, like, whatever I needed to do to play strong players and get a good game from that game was like my goal, right? So, that was literally my goal for that whole summer, and I was able to do that.
Now, I'm curious, were you pretty consistent with your openings? Was it like, this is what I'm playing, I'm opening whatever with E4 and as black, or did you kind of mix it up? I'm just curious what your take is on that.
So I like to play for good games, right? So, like, I'm not really too point oriented or goal oriented when it comes to, like, winning and losing. So I'm down to play whatever that I'm comfortable with, right? Like, it depends on what I want to get from the game. I'm always going into a game trying to, like, get something out of it. And so whether if I want to attack your end game, right? What openings do you play where we're more liable to, get into an end game? I'll do that. Even if I don't play E4, right? I'll play an E4 opening just to get to that end game kind of thing. At this point, I'm more whatever when it comes to openings, as long as I'm prepared. But you won't catch me playing the Caracan without doing at least an hour of preparation beforehand, like right beforehand. So you don't have to be, worried about that. But at this stage of my career, I'm pretty much doing a lot of experimenting and just, testing out all the positions that I can, and before before I get that GM title.
Right. So you're thinking you like the struggle, you like the contest. Like, let me get a good game, let me fight, and I want it to be interesting, and then the win will come. That type of thing.
Yeah. Let's sit here for 5 hours and see who wins or what would happen.
And that's probably the right attitude to have, because I think so many players, I think amateurs, even title players also, it seems to me, you get so focused on getting the point that you're not identifying with the struggle of the game, right?
Yeah, I think maybe we probably need to bring cigars back to the gentleman's game.
Yeah, like those old photos from the Marshall, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, very cool. So now I definitely want to get to your organization called Black Squares Chess, and I'm definitely going to put a link. It's a program to bring chess to the community in St. Louis. I don't want to give it too much of an introduction because I want you to talk about it, but let us know about, Black Squares Chess, how you started it, what your mission is, the type of things you do.
Yeah. So we were able to start Black Squares during the pandemic. We were blessed enough to be able to do that during the pandemic. We had a group of parents that were trusting with us and allowed us to teach their kids while during such difficult times. But what Black Squares is just it's like an initiative. It's a movement, right? And we're just spreading access to those who otherwise wouldn't have that access. So we do a lot of work in St. Louis, but me being from the Bronx, we also do a lot of work in the Bronx as well. So we do school programming, right? Curriculum, after schools and things of that nature. Trying to get some tournaments going up pretty soon. But we did test those out and those were successful. So we'll be doing a lot more of that in the future. But we were able to also host camps this year in both locations in St. Louis and in the Bronx, which was pretty cool because last year we were only able to do just St. Louis. So we're definitely growing and I'm definitely excited about that. But this is something that's been moving since 2020, spring of 2020. So that's when we pretty much started. But our main initiative is just to be able to create another me per se, right? Be able to create another national champion from these areas that chess isn't even a thought for the most part, or be a part of a championship level team, just like 318 was. And like Elizabeth Vickery and John Gavin, they were pretty big inspirations for me when it came to this idea. Right, like Elizabeth Vickery being the real chess head, the coach, whereas John Gavin was also equally important, right? The director role and making sure people are where they need to be, and we go to these tournaments and making all of that possible. So being on this side now, I understand the struggles that they held, and what I actually have to overcome for these kids to actually get something from the program.
Now you have, I guess, people working with you. I know you direct a program, but you have, like, how many other adults do you have involved in this?
I work with this is a partnership between me and another nonprofit called Dream Builders for Equity here in St. Louis. And so we have a lot of hands on deck, even if it has to come from like the head, like the president or the vice president. We're mainly just a not a real estate, but like a developmental organization. We do a lot of rebuilding and revitalizing of houses in the neighborhoods and trying to bring up property values and things of that nature. But for the most part, like all of the older people, for the most part in this program, they know how to play chess. And so they've taught a class, they've showed up and, worked with a group of kids before, with chess being the emphasis. And so I'm pretty much the main guy. I'm the octopus here, but we definitely got some other guys and some other people that fill in when we need it.
Right now, the school stuff, it's like an after school type thing or Saturdays?
Oh, so we do a mix of all of it right now. So school is starting again. Or school has started already. So we're doing after school at the moment, but we also do, we will bring it back this fall. We were doing bi-weekly training sessions in person, and then weekly training sessions online. But yeah, we were gonna hold off on that until we were creating more tournaments and things of that nature, just because the chess scene here is just very non-existent for the most part, even though St. Louis is like known as a hub for chess. But if you're not top, 20 in the world, then it's kind of hard to really get something going. Other than that, we're just trying to, fix the pipeline here when it comes to chess.
All right. I think that's great. I think that's great what you're doing. And, on behalf of the podcast, I'm going to be donating a bunch of chess sets to your program. Okay.
I appreciate it.
So
Thank you.
I'm happy to do it. I think it's fantastic what you're doing. And, it's a great game. So, we definitely need more, people like you, and, it's fascinating. So very cool. So for our last segment, I was hoping we could kind of pick your brain a little bit, because we don't get to speak to a title player every day. So just for the folks out there, we have a lot of adult improvers. I was hoping, Justus, you could share some, general tips for improvement, maybe things that helped you, maybe common mistakes that you see when you're teaching, any kind of words of wisdom, just to help us at the amateur level.
I would say one of the biggest things that I've taken away, or I've used to improve very quickly. I don't know if somebody told me about this. Like when I take like long breaks away from the game and then come back, like just for some reason I feel like a different person. It just clicked to me after just like a long hibernation, was just focus on playing a good game rather than the result. Like playing a 2000, cool, right? But try to make no mistakes in this game and see what the result is there. And I don't know, I feel like at one point I was doing it against some pretty tough competition, like 22, 23, 2400 in that range. And I would just get, win after win after win, but it was just like pretty easy, because if I understood that I'm just here for 5 hours trying to play a good game, my opponent is not thinking the same way for the most part. A lot of people they have a lot of things on their mind, whether it's, rating, whether it's, I don't know how to play this opening, or like tournament standings and things of that nature. I'm really present in this one game, this one plan, right? How do I get out of this opening? How do I activate this bishop? Because I know this bishop is a problem piece in this opening kind of thing. So I try to, be super present by hypnotizing myself, like play a good game, get your pieces active, king safety, things like that, just constantly in my head for the most part. Another thing I like to do is I like to find really difficult problems, memorize one problem, and I'm just thinking about that problem throughout the day, trying to solve it, trying to make moves in my head. And throughout that day, like I will solve it for the most part. Obviously, I probably look at more than one problem a day, but there's some days where it's just like I'm just stuck on this one problem, and I already have to get out the house. So this is the only problem that I'm working with for the day. So I do a lot of that, but I don't really do a lot of computer work at the moment. Just a lot of reading, memorization, and just visualization techniques. And that's really what I'm just trying to improve on at the moment. And that's what I've been improving on for about a year and a half, which is pretty.
All right. So you're more of a kind of, let's open a book, let's have a physical chessboard, analyze, rather than looking at like chess base or something like that.
Yeah, it's like doing legs. It's like leg day in the gym. It's like the hardest part that nobody really wants to do is to open a book and finish the book, right? Because there's so many chess books, right? So nobody actually wants to do that work. But, the people that do that work, they get that result that you're yearning for. So once I just put on my big boy pants and crack open the book, it was just, and the results matched it. Yeah, it was over after that.
I like what you said earlier on about sort of mindset. You're basically laser focused on the game, not really thinking about the result. And I like what you said about getting up for the board too, because that's something I always say. But, it's funny. Other people will say, oh, no, stay at the board, concentrate. But if you're in a tough position and you're not sure what to do, I know for me, getting up and just clearing your head might be the best thing, right?
So did you watch the candidates at all?
Not as much as I would have liked to, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. So Ding Liren came in as one of the heavy favorites. 2,800, number one in China. Which game was it? I believe it was against either Rajabov or Rapport, where I believe it was Rapport actually. No, it was Rajabov. All right, so cool. He was playing Rajabov, and then he obtained a winning position out of on the white side of a Grunfeld. And so when the moment became like super critical, they both were under 15 minutes, and Ding Liren has been using his time wisely or effectively throughout the whole game, even up until this point. And then he makes one move very quickly due to his time pressure or, fear of the time pressure. And the game starts to slide after that. And you can see like his posture is just like super uptight and just at the board. And they finally reach move 40 and, Rajabov walks off and goes walking around and Ding is just there. And then when Ding makes his move, he just stays there, right? And commentators were just saying that even might be a mistake, just staying there after move 40 rather than getting up, clearing your head, especially after you just made a mistake, because, he's probably just trying to find different ways to rectify it before getting up. And the commentators were just saying he probably should be doing the reverse if he wants to still win this game. And he ended up drawing that game, but nonetheless, like I've even at the top level, right? It's important to that chess is not just chess. It's not just a board game. You got to get up. It's also a physical and I guess a different kind of mental game, right? You just gotta, in a sense, it's almost like golf. Like you gotta keep yourself in it mentally, even when the pieces aren't falling for you.
That's great. So what I think a big takeaway from all of your advice is that you're very good at sort of handling the tournament situation, right? Because I think for a lot of players, and if you disagree, let me know. Like they have the chess theory and they know this, but the actual tournament conditions, all the things you're talking about, they don't know how to handle themselves. And it's different from when they're studying at home. And then if they have the wrong mindset, they can fall apart, right?
Yeah, I mean, just high pressure situations in general, like you don't necessarily have to know where the pressure is coming from. It's just your response to that pressure. Like we were talking about earlier with the cameras and things like that. It's just different kinds of pressure, but nonetheless, it hardened me, right? So it made me into the diamond that I am today, right? So, yeah.
We're recording this on Labor Day weekend, so I don't want to keep Justus too long, all right? And I know he's a busy guy, but Justus Williams, International Master, we wish you the best of luck getting to GM. For those of you listening, I highly recommend you check out Brooklyn Castle if you haven't already. I'm guessing most of you saw it, but I'll put a link. It is available in its entirety on YouTube. There is a DVD. So I am Justus Williams. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And for those of you at home, we'll see you next time. We appreciate you listening. And as always, I hope you win your next game. Have a great day.